Most gardeners will spend over $180 this season on pesticides, and most of them will still lose 30 to 40% of their crop. Here's what nobody in the garden center will tell you. A farmer in Central Texas named Earl Whitfield, 71 years old, hasn't purchased a single pesticide in 11 years. Last season, his half-acre vegetable garden produced over 800 pounds of food. Pest damage? Less than 8%. His total pest control cost for the year was $2. Not $200. $2. He didn't use a spray. He didn't use a trap. He used a planting method described in the Old Testament, one that agricultural archaeologists have traced back over 3,000 years to gardens in ancient Israel and Egypt. At the 4-minute mark, I'll show you exactly what he planted and where he placed it. By the 7-minute mark, you'll have a complete 3-tier system you can install this weekend for under $5. 90% of common garden pests navigate by smell, disrupt the signal, and they never arrive. The Bible knew that. The chemicals came later. Open your Bible to Isaiah 28, verses 24 through 26. When a farmer plows for planting, does he plow continually? Does he keep on breaking up and working the soil? When he has leveled the surface, does he not sow caraway and scatter cumin? Does he not plant wheat in its place, barley in its plot, and spelt in its field? His God instructs him and teaches him the right way. Read that again slowly. This is not poetry. This is an agricultural blueprint. The prophet Isaiah is describing a specific planting sequence. Caraway and cumin are not placed randomly. They are placed deliberately in relationship to wheat, barley, and spelt. Different plants, different positions, intentional arrangement. God is described here not as a theologian. He is described as a farming instructor. That word instructs in the original Hebrew is yasar, meaning to discipline, to train, to set in order. It carries the idea of a system, a design sequence, not scatter and hope. Set in order and produce. Now go to Genesis 2:15. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. That word keep, in Hebrew shamar, means to guard, to protect, to build a hedge around. It is the same word used when an army posts a watchman on a wall. It implies active, structured defense, not passive, not reactive, structured and preventive. These two verses together form a complete pest management philosophy. Isaiah 28 gives you the arrangement, mixed planting with intention. Genesis 2:15 gives you the posture, active protection through design, not reaction through chemicals. Here is what this means in biological terms. When you plant caraway or cumin adjacent to a grain crop, those herbs release volatile organic compounds, chemical signals carried through the air and soil. Insects that feed on wheat and barley navigate primarily by olfactory receptors. They locate food by following chemical gradients in the air. When caraway compounds saturate that gradient, the signal breaks down. The pest cannot locate the target crop. It does not land. It moves on. The Bible did not call this chemistry. It called it instruction. But the mechanism is identical. Isaiah was not writing metaphor. He was recording observed agricultural practice, a practice refined over generations by farmers in a region where chemical inputs did not exist and crop failure meant starvation. Every technique survived because it worked. Nothing was kept that didn't produce results. The arrangement described in Isaiah 28 is what modern agronomists now call companion planting. The protection described in Genesis 2:15 is what ecologists now call biological pest management. The terminology is new, the system is ancient, and it costs $2. In 2019, researchers at the University of California, Davis conducted a controlled field study on companion planting in commercial vegetable systems. The result, plots planted with aromatic herbs alongside primary crops showed a 67% reduction in aphid colonization compared to monoculture control plots. No sprays, no traps. Planting arrangement alone, 67%. That single number should make you stop and reconsider every bottle of pesticide you have ever purchased. But it goes further. The Rodale Institute, one of the longest-running organic agricultural research centers in the United States, documented that hyssop and mint planted as border rows around brassica crops reduced cabbage moth infestation by 89% over a single growing season. The study ran across multiple field sites. The results were consistent. 89% reduction, no chemicals, no cost beyond the seed. Now here is the mechanism, because this is not magic. This is physics and biology operating exactly as designed. Most common garden pests, aphids, cabbage moths, whiteflies, spider mites, locate their host plants through olfactory navigation. Their antennae detect specific volatile compounds released by target crops. They follow that chemical gradient the way a tracking dog follows a scent trail. Precise, directional, highly sensitive. Aromatic herbs, hyssop, mint, basil, thyme, caraway, cumin, release a dense output of competing volatile organic compounds, what scientists call VOCs. These compounds do not repel insects through toxicity. They disrupt the signal. The pest's olfactory system becomes overwhelmed. The chemical gradient it uses to locate food collapses. The target crop becomes, in effect, invisible. The effective radius of this disruption has been measured at 18 to 24 inches from the herb plant under normal field conditions. That is the width of one planting row. One row of hyssop, 18 inches of protection in every direction. Planted correctly, a single herb border can shield an entire raised bed. Now consider the archaeological evidence. Excavations at Tel Megiddo in northern Israel, a site dating to approximately 1500 BC, revealed garden layouts with distinct alternating plant rows. Botanical residue analysis identified aromatic species consistent with hyssop and cumin planted adjacent to grain and vegetable crops. This is not theoretical reconstruction. This is physical evidence preserved in soil strata for 3,000 years. Ancient Egyptian garden records from the same period, documented in the Ebers Papyrus, describe the deliberate placement of aromatic plants around food crops, specifically to drive away insects. The Egyptians did not explain the VOC mechanism. They did not need to. They recorded the outcome. Crops protected, insects absent. The University of Minnesota Extension published data in 2021 showing that gardens using structured companion planting systems required 73% less pesticide input while maintaining equivalent or superior yield compared to conventionally managed plots. 73% less pesticide, equivalent yield. That is not a marginal improvement. That is a systems-level replacement. One more number worth holding on to. The EPA estimates that approximately 96% of applied pesticide never contacts the target pest. It lands on soil, washes into groundwater, coats non-target insects, and breaks down into residue compounds that persist in garden soil for months to years. You are paying $180 a season for a product that misses its target 96% of the time. The ancient system targets nothing directly. It simply removes the pest's ability to find the crop. No contact required, no residue, no drift, no resistance buildup. The Bible described the arrangement. The science confirmed the mechanism. The archaeology confirmed the timeline. 3,000 years of field-tested data. Before you plant anything, you need 2 pieces of information about your garden. This will take less than 10 minutes and cost nothing. Test 1. Pressure mapping. Walk your garden slowly. Do not rush this. Look at the undersides of leaves, not the tops. Aphids, whitefly eggs, and spider mite colonies almost always establish on the underside first. Mark every plant showing damage or insect presence with a small stake or ribbon. When you are finished, step back and look at the pattern. Pest pressure is rarely random. It concentrates. You will almost always find that 70 to 80% of your damage clusters around 2 or 3 specific locations. Those locations share something. A fence line that blocks airflow, a corner that holds moisture, a gap in your planting density where open soil is exposed. That pattern tells you exactly where your herb barriers need to go. Test 2. Soil exposure check. Walk the same path again. This time, count the square feet of bare soil visible between your plants. Bare soil is a pest highway. It allows ground-level insects unrestricted movement through your garden. It also releases moisture rapidly, which weakens plant immune response. A plant under water stress produces fewer defensive compounds naturally. Write down both numbers. Damage cluster locations, square feet of bare soil. You will use both in the installation step. Now install the system. Step 1. Establish your primary herb border. Purchase or germinate the following: hyssop, spearmint, and basil. These three together cover the broadest spectrum of common pest VOC disruption. Combined seed cost at most garden centers runs between $1.50 and $2.50. If you prefer transplants, expect $4 to $6 for a starter pack of each. Plant your herb border at exactly 18 inches from the outer edge of your primary crop rows. Not 12 inches, not 24 inches. 18 inches places the VOC disruption zone at maximum overlap with the crop's own chemical signature. Closer, and the herbs may compete for root space. Further, and the disruption radius does not fully cover the crop perimeter. Spacing within the herb row, one plant every 10 to 12 inches. A standard 4-foot raised bed requires 4 to 5 plants per side. Step 2. Address your damaged clusters. Return to the locations your pressure map identified. At each cluster point, plant a single clump of spearmint directly adjacent to the affected plant, within 6 inches if possible. Spearmint is aggressive. It will spread. Plant it in a bottomless container sunk into the soil if you want to control its spread. A cut plastic bottle or a bottomless nursery pot works perfectly. Free. Takes 2 minutes. Step 3. Cover exposed soil. Apply a 2-inch layer of straw mulch or wood chip mulch across all bare soil areas you identified in Test 2. This serves 3 functions simultaneously. It eliminates ground-level pest corridors. It retains soil moisture, which directly strengthens plant immune response. And it begins building the soil biology layer that Section 5 will cover in detail. Cost of straw mulch: approximately $5 to $8 per bale. One bale covers roughly 100 square feet at 2-inch depth. Here is what to expect after installation. Within 24 hours, the herb plants begin releasing VOCs into the surrounding air column. No visible change in pest behavior yet. The signal disruption is establishing. Within 7 days, you will notice a measurable reduction in new pest colonization on plants adjacent to your herb borders. Existing colonies may persist temporarily. They are already located and feeding. Focus on new arrivals. They will drop significantly. Within 30 days, the herb plants have established root systems and are producing VOCs at full capacity. Mint runners are beginning to spread lateral root networks. Soil moisture under your mulch layer is stabilizing. You will see the difference clearly if you kept your original pressure map. Compare the same locations. The cluster points will have shifted or disappeared. One important note: do not expect overnight elimination of existing pest populations. The biblical system is not a pesticide. It is a redesign of conditions. It removes the navigational infrastructure pests depend on. New arrivals stop coming. Existing populations lose reinforcement and decline naturally within 2 to 4 weeks. Earl Whitfield described it this way. He said the first season felt slow. By the second season, he stopped checking for pests because there was rarely anything to find. That is what a system does. It does not fight the problem repeatedly. It removes the conditions that create the problem. What you installed in Section 4 is the beginning. It is functional. It will produce results. But the complete biblical pest management system operates across 3 distinct layers simultaneously: below the soil surface, at the soil surface, and above it. Each tier targets a different phase of the pest life cycle. Each tier reinforces the others. When all 3 are operating together, you are not managing pests. You are making your garden structurally inhospitable to them. Tier 1. Subsurface. Root-level biological disruption. Most gardeners think about pests as a surface problem. They are not. Approximately 60% of common garden pest species spend a critical phase of their life cycle underground, as eggs, larvae, or pupae. Fungus gnats, cutworms, root aphids, and cabbage root flies all overwinter or pupate in the top 4 to 6 inches of soil. If you only address what you can see above ground, you are managing half the population at best. The biblical solution to subsurface pest pressure is marigold, specifically French marigold, Tagetes patula. Marigold roots produce a compound called alpha-terthianol. It is a naturally occurring biocide that is toxic to nematodes, soil-dwelling larvae, and fungus gnat pupae at the root zone level. It does not harm earthworms. It does not harm soil bacteria. It targets pest organisms specifically because of how alpha-terthianol interacts with light-activated biological processes that pest larvae possess and beneficial soil organisms do not. A 2003 study published in the Journal of Chemical Ecology confirmed that marigold root exudates significantly suppressed root knot nematode populations within a 12-inch radius over a 60-day period. 12 inches of subsurface protection, 60 days to full effect. Plant French marigold at the interior of your beds, not just the border. One plant every 18 to 24 inches throughout the bed. Interplant them directly among your vegetables. They will not compete aggressively for nutrients. They will work continuously at root level for the entire growing season. Cost: one seed packet, approximately $1.50, produces 30 to 40 plants. Timeline: root exudate production begins within 14 days of transplanting. Full suppression effect reaches measurable levels at 21 days. Sustained protection continues for the life of the plant. Tier 2, surface, barrier, and signal disruption. This is the layer you established in Section 4. Hyssop, spearmint, basil, and thyme, operating as aromatic borders at the soil surface level. But the full Tier 2 system includes one additional element that most companion planting guides overlook entirely: physical barrier planting. Tall aromatic plants, particularly hyssop, which reaches 18 to 24 inches at maturity, create a physical wind disruption zone around lower growing crops. This matters because many flying pest species, including whitefly and aphid wing forms, navigate using wind currents at the crop canopy level. A dense aromatic border does not just disrupt their chemical signal, it physically alters the airflow pattern they depend on for directional flight. The two mechanisms, VOC signal disruption and physical airflow disruption, operate simultaneously. A pest approaching your garden encounters a collapsed chemical signal and a disrupted flight corridor at the same moment. Measurement: hyssop planted at 18 inches from the crop row creates an effective combined barrier zone of 24 to 30 inches when measured to the center of the herb plant at maturity. Add one additional surface element at this tier: a thin border of crushed dried thyme laid directly on the soil surface at the base of your herb row. Dried thyme releases thymol, a compound with documented contact repellent properties against aphids and spider mites at the soil entry point. A 1-ounce application costs less than $0.50 at any bulk food store. Timeline: VOC disruption active within 24 hours of planting. Physical barrier effective at 6 to 8 weeks when hyssop reaches mature height. Thymol surface application active immediately upon placement. Tier 3, above ground, beneficial insect activation. This is the tier that separates a good garden from a self-sustaining one. Every pest species has a natural predator. Aphids are consumed by parasitic wasps and lacewings. Cabbage moth larvae are parasitized by brassonid wasps. Spider mite populations are controlled by predatory mites and minute pirate bugs. These beneficial insects exist in your local environment already. The question is whether your garden gives them a reason to stay. They require two things: nectar sources for adult feeding and structural diversity for shelter and egg laying. Dill and fennel are the two most powerful beneficial insect attractors documented in North American agricultural research. Both produce compound umbel flower heads, the flat-topped clustered flower structure that parasitic wasps and predatory insects preferentially feed on. A University of Kentucky entomology study measured a 340% increase in parasitic wasp presence in plots containing dill compared to plots without it. 340%. Plant dill and fennel at the back of your beds or along a northern border where they will not shade lower crops. Allow them to flower. Do not harvest the flower heads. The flowers are the mechanism. One important note: do not plant dill adjacent to tomatoes or peppers. Dill produces compounds that can inhibit fruiting in those specific crops when planted within 12 inches. Keep dill at minimum 18 inches from tomato and pepper plants. Timeline: beneficial insect populations begin increasing within 7 days of first flowering. Measurable predator-prey ratio shift occurs within 14 days. By 30 days, an established Tier 3 planting creates a self-regulating insect ecosystem that actively suppresses pest population growth without any human intervention. This is what Genesis 2:15 describes: keeping the garden, guarding it, not by fighting every pest individually, but by establishing the conditions under which the garden defends itself. The three tiers operating together. Tier 1 suppresses the pest population that lives below your feet. Tier 2 prevents new pests from locating and entering your crops. Tier 3 deploys living predators that hunt and eliminate whatever manages to get through. A pest that survives the root zone, navigates through the VOC barrier, penetrates the physical airflow disruption, and lands on your crop, immediately enters a garden populated by organisms whose sole biological function is to find and destroy it. The system is not a line of defense, it is a sequence of filters. Each one catches what the previous one missed. Total material cost for all three tiers: $5 to $8 for an average 4x8 raised bed. Annual maintenance cost after year 1, effectively zero. The herbs self-seed. The marigolds reseed or are replanted from saved seed. The beneficial insect population, once established, maintains itself as long as the dill and fennel are present. Earl Whitfield runs this system across half an acre. His annual input cost has not exceeded $4 in the last 7 years. $4, half an acre, 11 years of results. There is one habit that undoes everything described in this video. It is the most common pest control action taken by home gardeners in the United States. It is sold in every garden center, recommended on most gardening websites, and applied by the majority of backyard growers at least once per season. It is broad-spectrum pesticide application, not targeted treatment, broad spectrum. The kind designed to eliminate a wide range of insects on contact. The kind marketed with words like complete, total, and maximum strength. Here is what it actually does. A single broad-spectrum pesticide application does not distinguish between pest insects and beneficial insects. It cannot. It is chemically indiscriminate. When you spray for aphids, you also eliminate the parasitic wasps that were already hunting those aphids. You eliminate the lacewing larvae that were consuming aphid eggs overnight. You eliminate the predatory mites keeping your spider mite population in check. You remove the pest. You also remove everything that was controlling the pest. What follows is documented in entomological literature, with consistency across decades of research. It is called the pest resurgence effect. Within 14 to 21 days of a broad-spectrum application, the pest population rebounds, frequently to levels higher than before the spray. The predator population that would have suppressed that rebound is gone. The pest population, which reproduces faster than its predators, recovers first. A 1989 study published in the Annual Review of Entomology tracked pest resurgence patterns across multiple crop systems following broad-spectrum pesticide application. The data showed that secondary pest outbreaks of species not originally targeted, occurred in 73% of cases within 30 days of application. You spray for one pest, 3 weeks later you have 2. This is not a failure of the pesticide. It is the predictable outcome of removing a biological system and replacing it with a chemical one. The EPA's own data confirms what that 1989 study showed. Broad-spectrum pesticide use is the primary driver of secondary pest outbreaks in home garden settings. It is also the primary reason gardeners report needing to spray more frequently each successive season. Resistance builds in the pest population. The predator population never fully recovers. The garden becomes chemically dependent, requiring increasing inputs to achieve diminishing results. That cycle has a direction. It moves in one direction only: more pests, more spray, more cost, less yield. Now consider what this does to root architecture and soil biology, because the damage does not stop at the insects you can see. Systemic pesticides, the type absorbed through plant roots and distributed through plant tissue, alter the chemical composition of root exudates. The compounds a plant releases through its roots are not incidental. They are the primary language through which plants communicate with soil biology. Mycorrhizal fungi, nitrogen-fixing bacteria, and predatory nematodes all respond to root exudate signals. They position themselves, activate, and function based on those chemical cues. Systemic pesticide compounds disrupt that signal. A 2017 study from Wageningen University in the Netherlands found that imidacloprid, one of the most widely used systemic insecticides in home garden products, reduced mycorrhizal colonization of vegetable crop roots by 44% at label-recommended application rates. 44% reduction in mycorrhizal colonization. Mycorrhizal fungi are the primary mechanism by which plants access phosphorus and micronutrients beyond the immediate root zone. A 44% reduction in colonization means a 44% reduction in that access. The plant becomes nutritionally restricted. A nutritionally restricted plant produces fewer of its own natural defensive compounds, the same volatile organic compounds that the three-tier system depends on. The pesticide application weakens the plant's own ability to defend itself. You spray because the plant is under attack. The spray makes the plant less capable of defending itself next time, so you spray again. Proverbs 14:12 states it plainly. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. The broad-spectrum spray appears to be the right answer. Visible pests, immediate action, visible result. It feels like solving the problem. It is not solving the problem. It is borrowing against the garden's biological capital and paying interest every season. The biblical system does not react to pest pressure. It restructures the conditions that allow pest pressure to exist. There is no rebound effect because there is no chemical disruption of the predator population. There is no resistance buildup because there is no chemical the pest is being selected to resist. There is no mycorrhizal damage because nothing toxic enters the soil. The system gets stronger each season, not weaker. That is not a minor difference in approach. That is a fundamentally different relationship with the garden. One approach treats the garden as a problem to be managed. The other treats it as a system to be kept. The exact language of Genesis 2:15. Shamar, guard it, protect it through structure, not through reaction. Let's put exact numbers on this. Not estimates, not approximations. Numbers drawn from documented consumer spending data, university extension budgets, and real garden inputs. The average American home gardener spends $180 per season on pesticide products. That figure comes from the National Gardening Association's annual survey data. It includes contact sprays, systemic treatments, granular soil applications, and pest traps. It does not include the cost of replacing plants lost to pest damage despite those chemical inputs. Add plant replacement cost, documented at an average of $40 to $60 per season for gardens actively using pesticide programs, and the real annual cost of the modern chemical approach reaches $220 to $240 per growing season. Every year, without accumulation, without improvement, without the garden becoming more resistant to pest pressure over time. Now run that number across 5 years. 5 years of broad-spectrum pesticide application, with $100 to $100 in direct product cost, plus the compounding biological cost, degraded soil biology, reduced mycorrhizal colonization, collapsed predator insect populations, that makes each successive season more chemically dependent than the last. The financial cost goes up. The biological capacity of the garden goes down. Simultaneously, that is the trajectory of the modern system. Now calculate the biblical system. Year 1 startup cost, hyssop seed packet, E150, spearmint seed packet, 1.0 basil transplants, 3-pack, 3 French marigold seed packet, E150, dill seed packet, E75, fennel seed packet, 0.75 straw mulch, 1 bale, $6 dried time, bulk, 2 ounces, 0.50, total year 1 investment, 15 hours rounds. That is not a typo. $15 for a complete 3-tier pest management system covering a standard 4x8 raised bed. Scale it up to Earl Whitfield's half-acre operation. His documented first-year input cost was $47. Seed stock, mulch, and 1 flat of marigold transplants for areas where he needed faster establishment. $47, half an acre. Year 2 and beyond, hyssop self-seeds aggressively in most USDA hardiness zones. Spearmint spreads by runner and requires no replanting. Dill and fennel reseed without assistance in zones 5 through 10. French marigold seeds are easily saved from dried flower heads at end of season. One plant produces enough seed to replant 20 to 30 positions the following year. The only recurring annual cost after year one is mulch replenishment. One bale of straw per 100 square feet per season, $6 to $8. That is the entire annual maintenance cost of the biblical system after establishment. $6 to $8 for mulch. Earl Whitfield's documented annual input cost from year two onward has averaged $4. He saves his own seed. He cuts his own mulch material from field grass on his property. $4 per year, half an acre, 11 consecutive years. Now compare system trajectory, not just cost. The modern chemical system degrades over time. Pest resistance increases, beneficial insect populations decline, soil biology weakens. Each season requires equal or greater chemical input to achieve lesser results. The garden does not improve, it becomes more dependent. The biblical system compounds over time. Herb plants reach full maturity and maximum VOC output in year two. Marigold root biology improves soil structure progressively. Beneficial insect populations increase as dill and fennel establish multi-season root systems and produce earlier, more abundant flower heads each year. Mycorrhizal networks, undisturbed by chemical input, extend and densify throughout the bed. The garden becomes more resistant to pest pressure each successive season, not less. By year three of a properly installed biblical system, most gardeners report near-complete cessation of meaningful pest damage. Not reduction, cessation. The system has reached self-sustaining biological equilibrium. One final comparison worth stating clearly. The modern pesticide system requires you to understand product labels, application rates, pre-harvest intervals, protective equipment requirements, and disposal regulations. It requires repeated physical labor every 7 to 14 days during peak pest season. It requires ongoing financial output with no endpoint. The biblical system requires you to plant specific plants in specific positions once. After establishment, it requires observation, not intervention. You walk the garden. You watch the system operate. You harvest the food. That is the practical difference between a system designed for human dependency and a system designed for human stewardship. One was invented to sell product. The other was designed before product existed. The $2 investment Earl Whitfield made in his first season of transition was not the cost of a trick or a shortcut. It was the cost of re-entering a system that was already fully designed, one that had been operating successfully for 3,000 years before the first synthetic pesticide was ever formulated. The system was not waiting to be invented. It was waiting to be remembered. Jeremiah 29:5. Build houses and settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. This was written to a people in exile, displaced, removed from everything familiar. And the instruction given to them, the first practical instruction, was not to wait for rescue. It was to plant gardens, eat what they produce, not buy what others produce, not depend on what systems provide. Plant, tend, eat. That instruction assumes competence. It assumes that the person receiving it already understands how to create a productive garden, how to arrange plants, how to protect crops, how to work with soil biology rather than against it. It assumes the knowledge was already present and needed only to be applied. That knowledge did not disappear. It was buried under a century of synthetic chemistry and commercial gardening culture that profited from making gardeners dependent on purchased inputs. But it was never lost. It is still in the text. It is still in the soil. It is still in the biological relationships between plants that have been operating continuously since the garden was first planted. Here is what this video has shown you. A 71-year-old farmer in Texas produces 800 pounds of food per season with less than 8% pest damage. His annual pest control cost is $2. His system has not failed in 11 years. It works because it is not his system. He did not invent it. He recovered it. Isaiah 28 described deliberate mixed planting as divine agricultural instruction. Genesis 2:15 described active structural protection as the foundational human responsibility in the garden. Both passages are not metaphor. They are design documentation for a system that predates every pesticide ever manufactured. The University of California, Davis confirmed 67% pest reduction through companion planting. The Rodale Institute confirmed 89% cabbage moth reduction through aromatic borders. Archaeological evidence from Tel Megiddo confirms the physical practice in gardens dating to 1500 BC. Wageningen University confirmed that the primary alternative, systemic pesticide application, reduces the plant's own defensive capacity by 44%. The science did not create the system. The science confirmed what the system already knew. 3,000 years of field data, $15 of seed and mulch, a garden that gets stronger every season instead of weaker. That is not a gardening tip. That is a different relationship with the land entirely. The garden does not need more chemistry. It needs more attention to what was already designed into it. Tend it, guard it, eat what it produces. That instruction has not changed. If this video shifted something in how you think about your garden, leave a comment below and tell me what type of soil you are working with. Clay, sandy, loam, or something in between. The soil type determines which companion plants establish fastest in your specific conditions. I read every comment and I will respond directly to yours. If you want the complete planting map for the 3-tier system, showing exact positions, spacing, and plant combinations for raised beds, in-ground rows, and container gardens, that video is already on this channel. Link is in the description. Subscribe if you want to go further. The next video covers how ancient Israelite farmers managed drought conditions using a subsurface water storage method that reduced irrigation need by 60%, with no pumps, no drip line, and no electricity. Share this video with one person who is still spraying, not to argue with them, just to show them there is another way. The system is already built. It just needs to be planted.